There's a rumor going around the Walt Disney Company will experience massive layoffs, and Bob Iger is on the chopping block. Bob Iger already stepped down as CEO and is just floating around as like chairman, just hanging around in the background right before there were all sorts of problems from the big health event. Very, very good timing for Bob Iger. How did he know? I don't think we're going to ever find out. Let's get into this article. Before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, and if you want to support my work, go to collegeofthedead.com and pick up a copy of College of the Dead Graduation Day, where college costs you an arm and a leg. It's a full-color zombie apocalypse series. It's the second in a series that's ongoing. The first one's also available. The new one, College of the Dead Spring Break, is already underway. Also, you can get to epicmermaids.com and sign up to find out about the release of The Mermaids. This one has not come out yet. It's a full-color, ongoing series. It's an epic mermaid fantasy where it's like Game of Thrones with mermaids. It's really well done. I think you're going to love it. Let's get back to the article. Rumor, this is coming from Bounding Into Comics, but they cite other sources, which is great. Rumor, the Walt Disney Company to experience massive layoffs. Bob Iger is on the chopping block. A new rumor details that the Walt Disney Company will be experiencing mass layoffs in the near future. The rumor comes from user Phoenix on the WDW Magic Forums website. In a recent, which has had a lot of interesting predictions, by the way, so it's something to take seriously. In a recent post to the forums titled, "On Layoffs, Very Bad Attendance, and Iger's Legacy Being One of Disgrace," Phoenix details that the Walt Disney Company is about to experience some of the deepest layoffs I've ever witnessed in my adult life. Okay, so Phoenix elaborates. What you're about to see from Walt Disney will be shocking, and it will permanently change their business forever. The bloat is about to be gone. The mediocrity that's failed upwards all our lives is about to be purged. A new company is emerging. In fact, Phoenix claims that Bob Iger will be one of those who gets axed. They write, "And that brings me to Bob Iger. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Gotta Put Yoda on his wife's dress to bury some search engine leads. That guy. It's my pleasure to announce that soon he'll be tossed on his tushy." On his ass, maybe. I don't know. 3 asterisks, probably his ass. Phoenix adds, in disgrace, his sins, his poor judgment, his poor treatment of subordinates, his malicious temper, and his outrageous displays of toxic masculinity, as the kids call it. All this and more is coming. Good riddance. Honestly, I had not heard about any of that. Poor judgment. And I mean, he got the merger done with Pixar, where they acquired Pixar from Steve Jobs at a point where Pixar was about to leave Disney distribution forever, just distribute their own movies, which they could have done easily. He did a lot of things that worked well for the company. He was responsible for the acquisition of Marvel, then the acquisition of Star Wars. He had no control over Star Wars when he acquired it. That was all handled by George Lucas, who put Kathleen Kennedy in charge of Star Wars before the acquisition was complete without even notifying Disney. That was a sneaky move that George Lucas pulled, which obviously backfired on everybody. So I don't know about these stories. If Bob Iger is not a good guy, I don't know. Let's find out more, because Abigail Disney has something to say about this as well. There's a whole series of tweets from her. And there might be something to this rumor, as Abigail Disney, the granddaughter of Walt Disney co-founder Roy Disney, also warned that layoffs to the company would be coming. Now, Roy Disney started the company with Walt Disney, and Roy Disney was on the board of Disney. Roy Disney hated Bob Iger. Not Bob Iger. Roy Disney hated Michael Eisner, who they got into a lot of fights about. Michael Eisner had done a lot for Disney, but then started to get really egotistical and not respect the heritage of Disney, and it started to have decline under Michael Eisner. But Michael Eisner also established kind of their high concept, low budget film strategy of doing like the Mighty Ducks, and did create a great discipline department for their movie making, and they made a lot of money there until he kind of lost his act. And the other thing was losing talent. When you have a great company, you have to find a way to work with talent and retain them whenever you can. It's not always possible, but they lost Jeffrey Katzenberg, who resuscitated their animation division, and then Katzenberg went and started DreamWorks Animation, and that's when they really lost their mojo and their ability with animation at Disney. But then Bob Iger saved their animation department by acquiring Pixar. Going on, back to the article. In a lengthy Twitter thread, Disney began criticizing the current state of American business, saying, Disney being Bigail Disney, there's a deep rot at the core of American fundamentalist capitalism. Okay? Over the years, a greed is good mindset has taken hold across corporate culture, and CEOs have taken the ball and run with it. She continued, they populate their boards with other CEOs and add layers and layers of executive structure between themselves and their workers. Quote, eventually, they forget what they once knew, if they ever did, about what it was like to live paycheck to paycheck, to have no power over your own destiny, to feel like a cog in a giant machine whose work is unskilled, ergo easily replaced by 100 other people who would rather take your horribly paid job rather than continue to languish on unemployment. Well, what I'm going to say about that is, yes, CEOs are paid a lot, and it is a competitive marketplace. So Disney recently launched Disney Plus, as you probably know. It's an enormous success. The planning, the strategy, the execution for that was done by a guy named Iger. He was a vice president, high-level vice president there. He killed it. And if you go back and look in interviews and you see him talking and speaking and presenting himself and presenting Disney and presenting Disney Plus, he's freaking phenomenal. Now, when Iger stepped down as CEO a few months ago, and then they put in this other guy from the theme park division, Iger left soon after. He got an offer from some Chinese company to do something. But in any case, he was offered more money to do another job with more authority because he'd been passed over, is what it looks like to me. He didn't get the opportunity. So he better dealed the opportunity. He left. He executed a total ninja on Disney Plus. Disney Plus has 55 million subscribers now. A lot of that is related to the big health event. But Disney Plus actually had 25 million subscribers a month or so after it launched. It was a flawless, phenomenal execution, and enough new material like The Mandalorian was greenlit that it built a lot of energy and momentum for their channel. So, that Iger had a lot to do with that. So when it comes to how much are we going to pay CEOs, it's a social question, but in a way, it's kind of not a social question. If Iger went and just created $50 or $100 billion worth of value for Disney, what should his compensation be? Because if it's not enough, he's going to go and do that somewhere else, and that's exactly what he did. So there's something to be said for ethics. You have to have consideration of what's right for the people. You have to offer career opportunities for people and be fair with people. But at the same time, people can go out in the world and be like that Iger guy or be like Iger. Iger, he started at ABC working for Disney before it was acquired decades ago in a mailroom or some nonsense like that. So, he started somewhere in America and he built himself up. And America does offer that opportunity, whether we like it or not. It's a merit-based capitalist system, which is not perfect and fair and equal to all people, except that everyone, if they're physically and mentally well enough, have access to the system. So I'm a fan of a system that gives everyone at least a chance, as opposed to, these other oppressive systems and structures that really don't give you a chance, that really depend completely on corruption and who you know. And if you're not in a system that's merit-based, imagine how demoralized you would be. Why would you ever work harder to improve yourself if you were part of a system that wasn't merit-based? Because it's never going to be recognized. Moving on, back to the article. Okay. She continued, they forget what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. Yes, Bob Iger doesn't know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck because he's been an executive for a very long time, because he kind of earned that position in a tough management system at ABC. ABC was not like, it was a very well-run company. It's a whole other long story, but suffice it to say, you don't get to, quote, just be an executive. It's very competitive. It's not necessarily that easy. Yes, there are people that do favors for people, or maybe this person's son or something like that. That's not Iger's situation. That wasn't that guy Meyer's situation, who built Disney Plus either. She would then specifically talk about the Disney Company and how she previously objected to the company furloughing employees in April. Okay, so she's one of these people that says, hey, look, just burn cash endlessly at the company, weaken the company, pay people to do nothing because you made some money in the past. I mean, you want a company to be supportive in an emergency situation, but really, what are they supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? If you frequent a business and the business, let's say it's a comic book store, your local comic book store is closed because of the big health event. Shouldn't you be taking some of your money and continuing to send money to that comic book store, even though they're closed and they can't provide a service for you or give you comic books? No. I mean, same with a restaurant. The restaurant's closed. Like, well, just go and continue to put money through their mail slot endlessly. There is no big government that can endlessly support us. At some point, if we're not contributing to the power structure is going to be rid of us. And that happens in capitalism a little more fairly than it happens in any other system. She stated, quote, I objected when Disney furloughed their workers, not because they shouldn't have, but because they should have waited as long as humanly possible to do so, since unemployment benefits are finite, and the clock starts ticking the minute you are furloughed, no matter how long the pandemic lasts. Well, obviously they had some consideration for that. And Disney's theme parks are enormous. And they got the double hit of the theme parks being shut down and movie theaters being shut down. They're not structured for that. Who would have expected that could even happen? Apparently, Bob Iger might have known something somewhere. I mean, that's conspiracy talk, but how the hell did he step out of the head of this, minutes before this thing happened, like a week or two before this thing happened? He has connections in China, Bob Iger does. He was there for years, back and forth, opening the first Shanghai Disney. So perhaps obviously he knew what was going on to some degree. Maybe he got some information that wasn't public. I don't know. I'd like to know. All right. They furloughed workers as quickly as they did because there was very little cash on hand even after a year of historic profits. Where was the cash? In the hands of executives and shareholders. What? All right. $11.5 billion went out the door in share buybacks, enriching everyone but the people who worked hard to make this happen. Well, hold on a second. Enriching everyone but the people who worked hard to make this happen? Well, there are people that take paychecks, and then there are people that invest money in stock. If there's no investment in the company, there's no company for them to take paychecks from. So perhaps Abigail needs a little bit of work on that. But keeping that in mind, where was the cash? When a corporation reports profits, it's not reporting cash profits. Like especially something like Disney, that's enormous. So if a corporation makes a $10 billion profit, it doesn't mean they have $10 billion in after-tax cash sitting in an account. It doesn't work like that. There are all sorts of accounting games. Sometimes their profits exist in illiquid things like pre-made movies or prepaid advertising revenues, who knows what, all sorts of illiquid assets. And some of these historic profits obviously were paid out to people like, what's their name? George Lucas for $4 billion, or other investments in salary and theme parks and other things like that. It's not all liquid cash. Okay. More tweets from Abigail. Disney would continue to criticize, meaning Abigail, corporate greed among the CEO's class before explaining that Disney furloughed their workers because they intend to lay them off anyways. She wrote, Disney furloughed its workers because they intended to lay many of them off, but they didn't want the bad publicity that would come with the layoffs. So they chose to take the heat of 2 medium-sized PR hits instead of one great big one. Well, I mean, yeah, they have to manage their image, don't they? For the benefit of the stockholders and all the employees, because if their business gets hit further, guess who they're going to lay off? More employees. She then specifically predicted that layoffs will happen. Of course they're going to happen. Why would they have layoffs? Because if they don't have work for people, they got to lay them off. Just like all the people who are supposed to be working on film productions and TV productions right now for Disney and the rest of the film industry and TV industry. If they're not working, they ain't getting paid. Because these movies and TV shows can be incredibly profitable to make, like tremendously profitable when everything works perfectly. But they're not all like 99% profit. Some of them even lose money when they're sold. But if they can't sell the product, they're not able to pay to have the stuff made. And if they can't even make the stuff, it's like they can't just keep printing money and throwing it away. Only the Federal Reserve can do that, and only for a limited amount of time more. She wrote, wait for it, layoffs are coming. I don't expect Disney to pay people who don't work for them, okay? Nor do I expect them to employ people in excess of what they can afford. Okay, so she agrees with the layoffs. Abigail Disney would then detail that there are 2 important takeaways. She writes, but 2 things about that are important. The first is that they've not spent the last 2 decades prioritizing efficiency and productivity in the form of smaller staffs doing the same amount of work, presumably as larger staffs, pressuring people out so as to discourage seniority, messing with people's hours so they can't claim benefits of being full-time workers. The people whom they've cut loose would not have been so ill-prepared for the giant health event. And to that, I think she's referring to like all the H-1B visa people that they brought in at Disney, where they forced the existing employees in their corporate offices, where they could, IT, whatever other services, to replace. They forced existing employees to be able to get their retirement benefits. They were forced to train their replacements who were foreign people. And that is sketchy, and there should be regulations controlling that. And that's for the government to have done years ago or to do tomorrow. Obviously, there's a lot of political people and a lot of power that say that they want that to continue. And I agree with her on that one. It certainly shouldn't. She continued, these people not only did not have any savings, many of them have been forced into high-priced rented housing. Many of them have had to look to pantries to feed their families. Many shift workers were forced to delay health care or else work when sick because they'd not worked enough consecutive hours, because they were sick, to even take advantage of the sick day policy. Well, that's very confusing. And she actually needs to take that up with human resources, I think. She then wrote, so the first thing is basically, I and many others told you so. All right, well, that doesn't help. Your business practices have turned what could have been a crisis into a cataclysm for millions of American workers. Millions? I don't think Disney has millions of employees. I think Walmart has like 1 million employees. So I don't know if she's talking about... She's kind of blaming Disney on all of corporate America. I don't know. She then moved on to the second takeaway. The second is when they furloughed workers who were already living close to the bone. They shifted the moral burden of caring enough about those who mutually create profits with them onto the state and therefore the taxpayers. So she doesn't want the taxpayers to have to... She's protecting taxpayers now. Well, maybe she's running for office. Disney and others are asking us to pick up the tab for their years of whittling away at the dignity of American workers so they could transfer all that value way upstream to people like me, she continued. Well, she can go ahead and donate all of her net worth any time of day she would like. talk about being privileged. She was born into a family as a multimillionaire, so I'm sure she's donating a lot of that money. I don't know what she's doing, but she doesn't need to have any more net worth than she wants to. None of us do. We all have the privilege of giving away anything that we've earned if we so choose. She added, we people like or inherited, anything we've earned or inherited. She added, yes, people like me have essentially gotten rich off the oppression. Yes, it's a weighty word, and I mean it of and systemic stripping of dignity from millions of American workers, because that's how we were taught society works, because that's what the business schools told us to do, because Milton Friedman did not say to exploit people. That's another whole discussion about who Milton Friedman is about the freedom to choose, having freedom in society. And having freedom is not obviously ideal in every situation, except when you realize that freedom is all you have of your humanity. You take away freedom, now you've taken away somebody's humanity, and you're not a person anymore. You're not a man. You're not a woman. You're not a child. You're a thing. So without freedom, you've got nothing. Don't ever give that up for things need to be more equal. It's the only way you can be fully equal without freedom is to lose everything you have in your identity. You could be equally impoverished spiritually and financially. Because only shareholders matter. That's not true. That's a terrible thing to say. She's got a lot to say. So do I, but okay. Maybe me and Abigail Disney can do an interview. She then continued her criticism of the American corporate class at large. Greed is good. Business practices are morally bankrupt, not morally neutral or amoral, as its defenders claim, partly because there's not such a thing as morally neutral or amoral, but mainly because it has led to the active erosion of the quality of life of millions of our fellow Americans. It has hollowed out our democracy and left civil society hanging on by a thread, and has left to a nearly uncrossable abyss. There's the Disney storytelling for her. Okay, more adjectives, please. Uncrossable abyss between a teeny tiny minority of Americans and everyone else. And it has not just allowed, but encouraged the lucky few to believe that this is just a state of affairs. Look, the damage to our middle class is directly related to sending jobs overseas, which people in government decided to do in the early 1990s, when they also decided to attack a religion and a standard family. And if there's no family unit and there's no religion, there's no reason to believe in anything, to believe a difference of good or bad. You know, people that talk about, well, this isn't moral and that's moral and this is, it's like, well, what's your basis for your definition of the word moral? Because if it's not, Western religion, then I don't understand what you're talking about, and neither do you. You have to have common definitions of terms. Otherwise, you find these people who are angling for power changing the definition of words, as has been done in society lately. So I'm all for protecting American jobs and American business. But people in government since the early 1990s had decided, let's not do that. Let's just profit in a different way and gain power in a different way. And so they did. To the extent that she was part of it, I doubt she was part of it or is even aware of it. She then pitched her own idea on how to solve some of these problems. Oh, here we go. I have an idea. Instead of paying yourself more money than you can ever use, what if you decided to make less and share profits more broadly? Is $10 million a year enough for you? It sounds like a lot to me. Okay. All right. That's her great idea. Okay. So, this is the thing, is that this is how you know problems never get solved. Is because people say, well, I have an idea how we can solve some of these problems. It's like, well, things don't work that way. You can't just say, let's just solve a few problems. Let's just throw money over here. Let's throw money over there. It doesn't work. Can CEOs accept less money? Absolutely. But they also don't have to. It's a competitive marketplace. If someone offers me I have a business-to-business telemarketing company. If they say, hey, Adam, would you like to make less money? I promise to share more of it with other people. I would say, I've got my own business to run and people to hire and take care of. And, during this big health event, it actually did affect my business-to-business appointment setting business. We set appointments with people to meet people face-to-face. You think that didn't get changed when there was a health event? It did. And we're doing okay, but it's not like it wasn't massively affected. So, look, the way that we used to deal with charity in society in Western civilization was people would give charity directly, sometimes privately, sometimes publicly. They would get charity from public institutions. They would get charity from religious organizations. There are very generous people, particularly people that don't put their names on buildings when they make donations. But there are all sorts of people giving out money and help for all sorts of reasons. But if you're going to go work for a public company and dress up as a goofy, look, this is a hard job. Like being a character in a theme park is a very hard job. I don't know it. I've never done it. I've seen it described by journalists that go in at Disney, and they will be Pluto for a day. There's all sorts of training. The costume is hot. It's hard for them to see. All the Disney executives, at least for up until, I assume they're continuing to do it. When they were an executive, like Bob Iger included, Michael Eisner included, they all had to go and act as a character at Disney and to understand like the Disney experience of serving customers. So there's all sorts of criticisms you can make of corporate America, and it's fair to criticize, but just to assume that it's just easy to solve problems for people, like just snap your fingers and all of a sudden they're solved, or let's look at someone who has money right now and let's just take it all away from them. That doesn't solve any problems, and it's also not fair. And what does that say about if they can take money away from people with a lot of money and a lot of power? Then obviously they're going to take your money away. So where does that? You want to have a rule of law. Moving along, okay. Greed is good is a good business practice, by the way. It is. Like that movie Wall Street, where they said greed is good. It is. It organizes a motivation for business, because now we have a motivation for business of like, well, let's have political power. Like, well, no, I don't want my government and my political power resting in corporate entities that are supporting whatever strange new public movements to change all of society in bizarre ways. So I don't do business with Disney or whatever other public companies or other companies, Walmart, for the purposes of them to take political positions and directly start trying to change society. I'd rather that went through government. I really would, rather than go through business. Clownfish TV, which is a great YouTube channel, you should definitely subscribe to those guys, would also indicate there's a presence to this rumor that Disney will be laying off people. Well, of course they're going to lay off people. They need people for work. They don't need people to collect them, as a hobby. Keon points out the fact that Universal Studios Orlando had to lay off staff after they reopened. Well, yeah, there's going to be less attendance at these theme parks. There is less attendance, obviously. That's the nature of things. Theme Park Insider reported just last month, the Universal Orlando Resort has announced that it's laying off an unspecified number of its team members as the tourist industry remains mired in a global slowdown. The official statement from Universal begins, "We are working to structure and strengthen our business for the future in anticipation of the tourism industry taking time to fully recover. In that regard, we've already taken important steps such as adjusting budgets and implementing salary reductions and furloughs." The statement continues, most recently, we've made the difficult decision to reduce our parks. Of course, they're reducing their workforce. They have to. And they also have to reduce, the corporate departments that support marketing and services management, all this other stuff, like in back corporate offices that support these enormous divisions. They have to do that. It is business. You will get laid off if there is no work for you. What you want to do is get to work ASAP and make whatever adaptations you have to make, and not everybody can. You know, we've had it great in the United States for a long, long time in terms of being able to make money and having opportunity. This is not a great time. 2008 was not a great time either. But, you know, for me and my business, I've always, you know, worked the best I could to adjust to it, and we managed. That's what you have to do. Quote, we're aware of the impact this will have on those affected by this reduction and their families, and we're working to support them through this process. This includes severance pay, subsidized health benefits, and professional reemployment assistance. That's what they have to do. Finally, it concluded, we continue to have long-term confidence in our business and our industry and remain excited about all the projects we've been working toward. Like, well, they have to. Okay, much more, this is interesting, much more information about Disney's financial status will be revealed during Disney's third quarter financial results in their webcast. That'll take place beginning at 4:30 EST on Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. Disney promises results will be released after the close of regular trading, because they don't release results while stocks are being traded during the day, because that would affect the stock too much. What do you make of this rumor? All right, so what do you think? Do you think Disney's going to be laying off massive numbers of people? I think they will. I think Bob Iger is hanging around because he kind of wants to hang around, honestly. I don't think he needs to hang around. He's got more money than many do. He has tons of stock. He's been planning to retire for a long time. A lot of people have wanted him to stay through his multiple acquisitions and expansion of the company. But, you know, can he lead the company forward in terms of what it is that they have to do? He's not even leading the company anymore. Some other dude is. So, I don't know. He'll stay if the board wants him to stay. He'll go if the board wants him to go. He's done a pretty great job over the years, it seems like. Just like he got Pixar, he got Star Wars, ruined it, but that kind of wasn't his fault. George Lucas put Kathleen Kennedy in charge, and he couldn't change it at that point. Kathleen Kennedy has been at Disney corporate longer than Bob Iger was. She was there, and she's tied up with Amblin Entertainment, Steven Spielberg, like with all of the Hollywood elite. There's no way that Bob Iger could have gotten rid of Kathleen Kennedy anytime soon. So I don't know. He got Marvel. He did some amazing stuff. I don't know, but he's an older guy, and what is he going to do to fix the company at this point? Massive layoffs. Looks like it's kind of, you know, and consolidation is really the only thing they could possibly do with all of their acquisitions and all of the things that they've done. And it's just tremendous over the last 2 decades or so. There's obviously a lot of people they could be laying off in corporate, and a lot of people they could be laying off at the theme parks while very few people are working. So I don't think he wants to be the guy to do that. I'm sure he'd leave first. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Definitely subscribe, click the bell for notifications. And if you want to support my work, again, collegeofthedead.com, where college costs you an arm and a leg. Pick up a copy. And sign up for The Mermaids. It's a new ongoing full-color epic mermaid fantasy. It is coming soon. It's like Game of Thrones with mermaids. All right, I will see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.